Alrighty, so this is day 2 of opposite day filming. We are now in the kitchen.
So let's actually break down the lighting setup light by light so we can actually see how we lit the scene. How's it going, guys? My name is Andrew Murphy from Down Under in Gold Coast, Australia. So if you haven't already seen my short film Opposite Day, I'll leave it linked up here so you can go check it out, just in case, not really spoilers in here, but just so you can go check it out so you understand what I'm talking about. But essentially this is the kitchen scene in the film, and it's actually set in, it's like an interior morning scene. So that's going to change the lighting in a couple of different ways. So typically morning light will be coming from a lower angle, and sometimes it can have a bit of a warmer tone to it as well. So keeping these in mind, let's actually go into the breakdown.
The main light that is lighting the scene is the Evoke 1200. We also have the FL35 Fresnel lens, just to focus the light a bit more. And this is a Neewer 185 centimeter umbrella. And basically just acting as a giant ambient, kind of like a key light as well, but mainly just to bring up the level of the actual room. It's essentially simulating like a window, which is what we have over here. It's just pumping it up so it gets to the levels that we need. And this is at 100%, so this is 1200 watts.
So now this is actually the first time I used the Evoke 1200 with this massive 185 centimeter fold out umbrella. And I found that using it with the Fresnel wasn't the best option for this. I actually now use it with the 60-degree reflector dish, this one here. And it just ends up filling up the umbrella much better and actually distributes the light and evens out the light going through that umbrella. And this fold-out umbrella is actually a really simple way of adding like a lot of ambient feel to your scene without having that big of a footprint. Obviously, like I'm using the Evoke, so that's a very big light. But just like in terms of the umbrella itself, like it folds down to basically nothing. So you can just carry it around with you everywhere, and you can just basically shoot anything through it and just use it to light up a scene. The only real downside of using, say, like a shoot-through umbrella is that you really can't control it, like unless you get massive flags around the whole entire light, the whole entire umbrella, it just kind of goes everywhere.
And then we also have here the Nanlite Forza 300B with the FL20G Fresnel lens. This is acting as a bit of like an edge light for Ash, and it will be acting as an edge light for Joel once we actually flip the scene around. This is on 4400K, just to give a little bit of a color temperature difference. And again, we used a Fresnel lens just to really focus the light onto Ash.
Now the Forza 300B would probably have to be my most used light, mainly because like 300 watts is a lot of power. Like you can use it in a lot of different situations, but also because it's portable as well. Like you can run it off 14.8 volt V-Lock batteries, and you can basically take it wherever you want and use it in any situation. And then also the Fresnel lens has been like one of my new favorite accessories that I've fallen in love with. I'd never really used them before, but as soon as I got it and as soon as I started using it, I realized like how important it is when you are trying to shape light or really like just focus light into a small area without that big of a footprint, without that many like modifiers to do so. Plus, as well, the cool thing about a Fresnel is that it actually intensifies the light as well. So if you've got a low powered light but you want to use it in a situation where you'd need a higher intensity light, a Fresnel will allow you to focus that light and pump up the output as well. So like a Forza 300B with a Fresnel can actually compete with direct sunlight when you are using the Fresnel lens.
So that is Forza 300B. And then the most exciting light, which makes the biggest difference in the scene, is over here. So this is the Forza 150 with the Nanlite projector mount. So this is the PJ-FZ60, the small one. And if I turn this off, if we actually spin around and look at the scene. So right now we are shooting this way. And if we look at the scene, quite boring, quite flat. There's just like, a bit of like a gradient as the light comes in. So obviously we have a nice key light on our subjects, but the background's pretty boring. But if we turn on the projector mount, and we're actually shining through a goba, which is, I guess, simulating like a light shining through a tree. We get this nice patterning here, and it just breaks up the background, adds some light and dark areas. So now we have, obviously, the light in our subject, and just some sort of detail so it looks interesting on the background. That's the easiest way to, I guess, make a boring scene look interesting, is to add some sort of pattern or some sort of light and darkness to it.
Now, if you do want to learn a bit more about projector mounts, I'll leave a link up here to a video that I recently did where I answered your guys' questions in the community about things you wanted to see or things you wanted to see tested with the projector lenses. But again, the projector mount is just one of those accessories that allows you to really create depth in a scene or in an environment when you aren't kind of like given the best environment to start with. Because sometimes like you just have to deal with what you're kind of given. So we end up shooting this short film in my apartment at home just to keep the costs down and whatnot. And the only downside, I guess, is that my kitchen is brown, and brown is the worst color to have in a kitchen to kind of shoot with because it just clashes with skin tones. So adding that projector in to try add some sort of like lightness, darkness to the background just really adds a lot more depth to the scene. Now, looking back on this short film scene, there are some things that I would change that I'm only really noticing kind of like after I've actually edited the scene together. But obviously with time constraints on when actually shooting short films and shooting commercials and whatnot, you just have to kind of get by with what you can in the time that you're given. So firstly, with the Evoke through that massive umbrella, I really should have actually moved it a little bit closer to the camera, just so that the actual light source was wrapping around our talent's face a little bit more, just so it's not so side lit. It's not like the worst thing in the world, but it is nice when you have that little kind of like Rembrandt triangle on the other side of the face. And secondly, on this angle of gel, we did add that gobo to add some sort of like depth to the background, but it's not, you can't really notice it that much. Ideally, what we should have done is maybe like added a slit or something along the wall, or cut the gobo so like it would just kind of like maybe like halfway on the wall or something, just again to add more light and darkness to it, because where it is currently, you can't really see it that much. It still looks quite boring, quite plain. So that is definitely something that I would have changed for next time. And also just simple things like adding in some practical lights to the scene definitely would have come in handy as well. Like especially in Ash, we could have had some sort of like downlight underneath that little like kitchen bench thing, the little nook. And again on Joel, we could have had potentially like some sort of practical lights in the background as well, just again to add more depth to the scenes. And I'd say the hardest part about this scene in particular is because it did span over a decent amount of space. So it started with Joel walking in and going around to then meet Ash in the actual kitchen. We did have to try light everything to make it work, and we were limited with the space inside my apartment to put the lights in different spots and stuff. So yeah, that kind of didn't help the situation. And this is also why I always light my scene on a wide first, and then I punch in for the tights, because I've actually done this in the past where I've basically lit the tight or lit the close-up and made it look really nice, but then when I've punched out or gone out to go wide, the lighting actually doesn't work for the wide, and then we have to change it slightly or sometimes change it drastically, which then doesn't make the close-up work anymore. So whenever you are lighting a scene, definitely light the wide first to make sure that it's actually going to work in the wide, and then you can always push in and bring the lights closer and modify them slightly to make them look that much nicer. But overall, I am pretty happy with this. Again, I'll leave it linked down in the below if you want to see the finished product. But otherwise, guys, I hope you did enjoy this one. If you did, consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Did you like the look of this actual talking head as well? Shot in anamorphic with something different. But yeah, otherwise, I hope you guys are doing well. Remember to stay creative and just be you. Have fun.